on my profile, it talks about identity in Christ, and the reason that that is important to me is that is something that I think I've struggled with a lot throughout life. We put our identities in a lot of different things. We put it in our jobs, we put it in our spouse, we put it in our race, we put it in our politics, we put it in a lot of different things. And based on what I read in the Word, in the Bible, none of those things exist. None of those things are important compared to putting our identity in Christ Jesus and what He's done for us. And so I have kind of known that my relationship with Christ is important, but never really dived deep into what it means to have an identity in Christ. And so starting from the beginning, I would say I was very legalistic in my mindset, not necessarily on purpose. It's just I grew up in a Christian home, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it was an excellent thing and good for me. I think you can be screwed up growing in a Christian home just as much as growing up in a home that doesn't value faith in Christ. So, but I did grow up in a Christian home, and because of that, my mindset kind of turned to earning my way to heaven, even though it wasn't like I was trying to earn my way to heaven, but I always felt that I had to do good. I had to perform well, and I held myself to a very high standard. And I think that that's a natural product of my personality, and something I want to dive into a little bit later on is the Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and kind of personality types and things like that, because I do think that those are real. But I think that I really didn't fully comprehend what it meant to embrace a relationship with Christ and let that form who I was. And so growing up, I'd done different things, and I went to a Bible college and definitely felt like I was engaging with more of a personal relationship with Christ, and that really, I think, started something inside of me that was yearning for a closer relationship with God. But through the process of time, I started to lose that a little bit. And so in 2013, joined the Air National Guard as a firefighter. And I think it was probably around 2015, I was going to a church called Heart of the City in downtown Anchorage, Alaska. And at Heart of the City, they were doing this series called Beautiful People. And I don't remember tons of the specifics about that series, but some of the things that we were kind of diving into is, all these different kinds of people, in the Bible and who we are as Christians. There's this misconception that we're so put together and so, perfect to the outside world, and the reality is we're not. And if we look that way to people, then we need to be honest, be authentic with people, and tell them our weaknesses and our failings, because we are not perfect people. The church is very broken. But the series was really good in diving into that identity. And I can't remember if it was through Pastor Chris's sermon or through my own study that I kind of really embraced Galatians 2:20. And that's what this tattoo is about. Galatians 2:20 says, "I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up to me." Gave himself up for me. Sorry, to me, not to me. I no longer live. I have surrendered my life. The verse really hit home. It's not my job. It's not where I grew up. It's not how I grew up. That is my identity anymore. When I accept that relationship with Christ and when I let Him change me, I've surrendered that. And I'm crucified with Christ up on that cross. And that's not like you lose necessarily who God created you to be, but you do lose what you value, I would say, in a worldly sense. Something for me, something that I struggle with a lot is being analytical. I love to have a ton of information and try to make choices based on that information, which also leads to analysis paralysis, which is awful. But, excuse me, coronavirus. But it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God. And that's not an analytical thing. There's one choice. Either I can choose to believe in Christ and what he's done for me, or I don't have to. But I live by faith now. And that changes your mindset a lot. And it changes your mindset on a daily basis. I still struggle with putting my trust in, gathering information. I love to watch the news. I love to know what's going on. I love to have a backup plan. But the reality is my identity is in Christ. And I don't need to be worried about how people look at me, and how I look, and in what kind of job I have. I think that was, for me at the time, something that I was really, really struggling with, and I'm still struggle with. But, I wanted to say that I'm a firefighter. I wanted to say that I'm doing all this training. There's a lot of opportunities coming my way and in the way of the airmen around me. And I think that there was this false sense of I was a badass, and the reality is no, I wasn't that special at all. But even if I was, that's not what I should be putting my identity in. And so when we were going through that series, and I was kind of recognizing how much of my identity I was putting into my job and in the people that I had around me, and the relationships that I was trying to pursue and different things like that, it really hit me that I can't make those things my identity, because those things fail and those things change, and those aren't long-lasting things. My identity in Christ is in eternity, and everything else is temporary. And so it really caused me to evaluate my life, and I think it calmed me down for a good minute there. Like I struggled with a lot of social anxiety and different things, and when you can say no, I'm good enough for God, and my relationship is with Christ and my identity is with Christ, it allowed me to be free almost, to be myself, and to not worry, and to not really consume myself with what I did or the people that I had around me. So I really wanted to remember that. I really wanted to embrace that for the rest of my life. And tattoos, I'm not one of those people that think tattoos are a horrible thing. I don't think that if you get a tattoo, you're going to hell, or that means that you're not a Christian. I don't think that at all. I think my personality type, I don't like to be a conformist. I don't like to just do what everyone else is doing. And I think a lot of people get tattoos just to fit in with a crowd, and that's not the person that I am. Authenticity, like I say, is important to me, and so considering getting a tattoo, I'd always wanted it to be something that was worthwhile, something that I would want to last a lifetime. And so Galatians 2:20, like I said, it really made an impact, and so I decided that is what I wanted to get. So as you can see, nice wraparound text, and it's actually in Greek, the original text, and I triple checked before I got it tatted on me. But I really like it. It is a good reminder. Can't say that I remember my identity in Christ every day, even with a tattoo, but it has been a good thing to, when I'm going through those moments, when I'm starting to put my identity in other things, to kind of be able to look down and say, okay, this isn't really worth it. this isn't who I am. This thing, my identity in Christ is who I am. So it's a good reminder. And I don't think it's done yet. I would like to get like a crown of thorns and like maybe like blood seeping down through the text, just to kind of hit home more of that crucified with Christ aspect of the verse. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty cool. First one, maybe more to come. But that's why identity in Christ is on my profile before all those other things. So just one of those little life mottos, one of those things that God kind of, people make it sound like when you read the Bible, you can know everything about the Bible, and it doesn't teach you anything anymore once you've read through it once or twice. And I don't think that's true at all. I think life changes. You go through different things in life, and the Bible is a living, breathing thing. And there's times where you experience horrible things in life or good things in life, and then suddenly an aspect of text just really comes alive. And that was what that text did for me at that moment in time. So, identity in Christ. Something to think about. See what you're kind of putting your identity in. I'd be interested to find out. I know for us guys, especially me right now, kind of struggling with my career situation. I put a lot of identity in what I do, what my purpose is. Well, I take that back. I think it's easy to confuse purpose with your job, and those are separate things. So I definitely put a lot of identity in what I do for a job, and I don't have a job right now. So I've been struggling to put it mildly on that whole subject, because there's a lot of safety in being in the aspect of the military. Before I left the Guard, I'd done a deployment, so that's 6 months, and then worked on base for another close to 6 months. And so there was a lot of safety and security, a lot of community kind of in that. And, coming here to Tennessee, I've left Alaska, I've left, my family, I've left the Guard and that security, and I've left a career field that I kind of knew. So this is all new for me, and it's really forcing me to lean a little bit heavier into my relationship with Christ. And I'm the first to say that it's not been my go-to instinct. There's been a lot of stress and struggle before that. So still learning, still struggling, still failing every single day. But I'm fighting to remember my identity in Christ, and fighting to know that there is a purpose, that God has made each and every one of us for a reason, and that we have a mission here in this world. So still learning what that is. I think some of this stuff is part of it, but one day at a time. So anyway, don't know what I'm going to talk about next. Like I said, this series is a little bit more open-ended, just kind of formulating a little bit of who I am. This has gone on a little bit longer than I was expecting, but skipping over, some details, so maybe we could dive into that later. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a shout. I'd love to talk about it, or suggestions on what else to talk about. I'd like to talk about growing up in Alaska, about the Air National Guard and my experiences. We'll see where it goes. So thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later.